Aloha Planetary Kin. Welcome to another installment of It's About Time, where we explore the difference between natural time and artificial time. I'm your host and cosmic skywatcher, Randy Bruner, also known as Cosmic Hand, transmitting aligned with the divine from 19.5 on the Big Island of Hawaii. It's about time. Aloha Planetary Kin. Welcome to another installment of It's About Time. What we're talking about in these is natural time. Natural time is defined by what's going on in the stars, what's going on in the sky, the movement of the earth, the moon, the sun, and the planets. That's natural time. That's what we're talking about in this. And as your cosmic skywatcher, I take it upon myself to help you see what's going on in the sky and keep you informed of that. And what's coming up very soon is the new moon. And we're in the midst of two full moons of goodwill. In the sign of Gemini, when there's a full moon, it's the moon of goodwill. This time, while the sun is in Gemini, we're going to have two full moons. So we have two full moons of goodwill in this cycle. And the moon in Gemini, goodwill, moon in Gemini, goodwill. So we got an extra dose of goodwill to work with during this time. So that is part of what I am encouraging you to participate in. Any acts of goodwill that you can demonstrate will go a long way and maybe go farther than they would at other times. And so we had a full moon, which I talked about in a previous show, at the beginning of Gemini. Well, the next full moon is at the very end of Gemini. In fact, it is full less than 1 hour before the sun moves into Cancer. So the next full moon of goodwill is actually on the day of the summer solstice. So the full moon, the summer solstice, day of goodwill, and summer solstice at the same time. So it's really powerful to have that energy focused on the summer solstice with another big dose of goodwill. And that's what I thought I would do the next show about, would be the next full moon. But then I look at the aspects of the new moon and realize it's coming up very quickly. In fact, it is this weekend, Saturday, June 4th, on the Gregorian, and it is Blue Spectral Hand in the Dream Spell calendar. And so, Blue Spectral Hand on the new moon, power to dissolve in order to know. These are aspects that are coming into play when we look at the new moon chart. And one of the important things to see about the chart, and here we see the chart, you'll see that there is a grand cross dominating the chart, but over the grand cross there is also a grand trine. Now we have been talking about the grand trine in Earth for a few months now. And so the grand trine in Earth is still there, but it's also playing out on top of a grand cross or a grand square. And so those two aspects are really powerful and important to consider in a chart such as this, because the grand trine is all in Earth signs. Grand trine in Earth, and the grand cross is all in mutable signs, or the signs that are capable of change. So the cross represents the square, okay, because there's squares that square off the grand cross. So it makes it into a square. That means form. The power of the square is form. And form is what has held our culture in place for 2,000 years. Now we have a mutable cross, meaning the power of change is infused into the grand cross, grand square. Okay, each of the signs that is capable and even motivated to change is involved in a corner of the square, and that's part of the grand cross. So change is infused into that. This gives us an opportunity to change the form that our culture takes. And if we look closely at this, you can see here that Jupiter is at the corner of both the grand cross and the grand trine. So Jupiter is pretty much the focus of this chart. And if you look over here, you see Sun, Moon, Venus, and you also see 14, 14, 14. That means they're all exactly conjunct at the time of the new moon. And so it's common to have Sun conjunct Moon. That's what the new moon is all about. But having Venus in there at the exact time of the new moon is a rare event. But not as rare as all three of them sitting on the corner of a grand cross, grand square. So the moon and Venus both represent the goddess. And they're right there with the sun. Sun, goddess, goddess. Right there. And what are they opposing? They're opposing Saturn. Okay? What is the power of the goddess? Beauty, love, harmony, peace, joy, abundance. That's all goddess oriented. Okay? And that opposes Saturn, which represents materialism. But as I said in one of my other shows, Saturn only represents materialism in the paternal or patriarchal paradigm. It represents abundance when it's part of the goddess paradigm. So the goddesses over here with the sun are pulling Saturn back to abundance, back to its true nature, serving the goddess rather than serving the patriarchy. And the patriarchy makes Saturn into the hard taskmaster and responsibility and materialism, all those things. So that's the opposition that we're seeing there. We're asking the goddesses to step up, to create beauty, to be the personification of beauty and love. When the goddesses personify beauty and love, it pulls materialism back into abundance. This is part of the return of the goddess. As I talked about in one of my other videos, this is just a continuation of that same essence, that same energy. The return of the goddess is playing out in the stars. Pay attention. It is happening. It's time for it to happen. Okay, and looking further at this grand cross, what is opposing Jupiter? Neptune opposes Jupiter in the grand cross. So what is Neptune? Well, Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. And so in that respect, it could be construed to be a goddess energy. Okay, Neptune is watery and all of that. And so there is a goddess aspect, and Neptune actually happens to be in Pisces, which is a watery sign, and it is in its rulership when it's in Pisces. So water, water, those are all feminine aspects. So the other corner of the grand cross is anchored by the goddess energy as well. So the goddess here is opposing Jupiter, which represents religion. Okay, and so the power of Neptune is idealism, the ability to see the world as a good place, to have high hopes, to be optimistic, to see to see in your head something good happening rather than something bad happening. Idealism is the ability to dream the good dream, to dream a good life into being, to make our lives better, to make the world better for ourselves and for future generations. So idealism actually does oppose religion. Religion is the biggest limiting factor in our culture. It is the main reason for separation amongst the world's cultures. That's religion. And more wars were fought over religion than any other reason. Idealism opposes religion. That is part of the key. And so when we're looking at this grand cross, you can also see that there's a grand square included in it. And here's Saturn over here in Sagittarius, the mutable fire sign. There's the Sun, Moon, and Venus in Gemini, the mutable air sign. Jupiter is up here in Virgo, the mutable earth sign. And Neptune is down here in Pisces, the mutable water sign. And so Neptune is in its rulership when it opposes religion. So idealism in its rulership and the high aspects of spirituality associated with the goddess opposes religion. And what has religion done over the years but put down the goddess? Basically, it replaced the goddess religion with the patriarchy. But when I look at this, most people look at this and say, oh, those are all hard aspects, and oh, those are tough times. And I'm not saying that these aren't tough times, or that you might not be going through some tough aspects in your life. But the point is, the mutable signs are the signs of change. And we've been taught to believe that change is bad, that change is something we don't want. Well, that's just to keep the current paradigm in place. Change is good. Actually, change is the most beneficial thing. Nothing ever stays the same. Everything changes. We can't change that. We just have to flow with it. If we go with the changes as the way they're shown in the sky, then the change can lead to a breakthrough. That's really the key. The Blue Spectral Hand day is the day that dissolves in order to know. What dissolves is our vision of materialism, our vision of religion. That's what dissolves, and it lets us know what's really going on. Okay? The wool had been pulled over our eyes by the patriarchy. And so that's what's going on. That's the synchronization of the spiritual calendar with what is going on in the sky. Okay? The mutable cross brings about change. It can dissolve in order to let us know. And when I'm looking at these aspects, I'm showing you this is how we can use them. This is how we can get something good out of it. Instead of it just being, oh, how's that lay in my chart and what's that going to mean for me? Well, it does mean something for you, but it means something bigger for the whole world at this time. That is the key that we're talking about here. And this is an activity that everyone can be involved in because everyone lives in it. You know, it is time for this kind of a change to sweep across the earth. Now, when people like Nostradamus were looking at these times years and years ago, he looked at the movement of the planets. These are the charts that he was looking at when he was freaking out. Oh, how are they going to make it through that? You know, but the point is, we are already here. We've already made it through the time that he thought we were not going to make it through. Okay, he predicted from the year 2000 up to now was going to be just constant war and the complete downfall of humanity and culture. Okay, we haven't done that. We haven't blown ourselves out of existence or made the earth unable to support life by blowing up all the nuclear weapons we have. We made it. We are past that. These are new opportunities being presented for us because we made it past that. Why did we make it past that? The peace movement. The harmonic convergence set the tone for all of this. It replaced a day of war, the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima, with a day of peace. More people celebrated a day of peace on the harmonic convergence than were killed at the bombing of Hiroshima. And so the point is that was reset. By actively participating in the calendar, we reset the energy of that day. So now we're going to make it. We're past all of that possibility of blowing ourselves out of existence. These are opportunities here playing out in the sky that we can use to take us to that next level. Now, I haven't even got to the grand trine yet. I've just been talking about the grand square. So let's look at the grand trine, and it is Jupiter in the corner of that grand trine as well. Jupiter, then Pluto, then Mercury. Okay, so Pluto is the planet of transformation down here in Capricorn. Capricorn is another earth sign, which is, of course, the place of manifestation. But Capricorn, you work for the manifestation. And so Pluto in there allows us to work for transformation. And what are we transforming? Well, right over here, Jupiter is religion. So Pluto, the power of transformation, power of the manifestation of transformation, is trine to Jupiter. On the other side is Mercury, and Mercury is the power to communicate. So our communication brings about the transformation that transforms religion back into spirituality. These are the higher, more spiritual aspects. These are the harmonious aspects that lay directly on top of the difficult aspects of the square. And the other thing that is really cool about it is that it's a mutable square, as I've already said, but the mutable square itself actually mutates between the new moon and the full moon. The planets Sun, Moon, Venus move out of the grand square, and Mercury moves into the grand square. Okay, so the point is the grand trine shifts into the grand square. So it merges. The energy of the grand trine then merges with the grand cross. Grand square, grand cross. I'm talking about the same aspect. You can see it's a giant square, but in the giant square is two oppositions which make the grand cross. And so we're talking about geometry here. The grand trine transforms or mutates into the grand cross. So the grand cross mutates also. It's a mutable grand cross, and it mutates from the new moon to the full moon. So mutation, of course, is the possibility of transformation. Okay, the possibility of mutation holds the energy of change. Okay, so we could change on a molecular level. What do we talk about mutation most? Oh, mutate your genes, mutate, oh, all these things, they're construed to be bad. They're not bad. Change is not bad. Change is good. Change is what we need. We don't need to stay the same. We need to wake up and change. It is time for the return of the goddess, and it is playing out in the sky. Let's make the world a better place and play with beauty, love, harmony, peace, joy, and happiness. Yes, the return of the goddess is upon us.